Some people think detachment means you stop caring. Others think it means your heart became cold. No, detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of self-respect. And Islam does not teach us to destroy ourselves emotionally in the name of patience. Let me speak to you honestly today, because many of you are suffering quietly, not because Allah tested you, but because you refuse to let go of what Allah never asked you to hold. Just because something feels strong inside your heart does not mean it is good for you. Not every feeling deserves loyalty. Not every attachment deserves protection. And not every emotional bond deserves to stay. One of the greatest mistakes we make is assuming that intensity equals truth. If it hurts deeply, we think it must be meaningful. If we miss something badly, we think it must be necessary. If letting go feels painful, we assume holding on is righteous. But Islam never taught us to worship our emotions. The heart is powerful, but it is not always wise. The heart can want what weakens it. The heart can crave what drains it. The heart can cling to people, situations, or memories that slowly hollow it out. And if you are not careful, the heart becomes addicted not to love, but to attention, validation, and emotional dependence. There are people who are not attached to someone because of goodness. They are attached because they are afraid of being alone. There are people who stay in painful connections, not because they are loyal, but because they are terrified of silence. There are people who keep reopening old wounds, not because healing hasn't come, but because pain has become familiar. Islam never told us to obey every feeling that passes through the heart. If that were the case, anger would rule us, desire would control us, fear would paralyze us. Instead, Islam taught us discipline of the heart. It taught us awareness. It taught us to question our emotions instead of blindly following them. Ask yourself honestly, is this attachment bringing me closer to Allah or further away? Is it strengthening my character or weakening my self-respect? Is it helping me grow or keeping me stuck in emotional exhaustion? You are not rewarded for holding on to pain. There is no ajr in suffering unnecessarily. There is no virtue in repeatedly reopening wounds Allah is trying to heal. And there is no nobility in staying attached to something that continuously harms your peace, your dignity, or your connection with Allah. Some people confuse pain with patience. They think enduring emotional damage is sabr. But sabr is not self-destruction. Sabr is restraint with wisdom. Sabr is choosing Allah over impulse. Sabr is knowing when to stay and knowing when to release. You are rewarded for trusting Allah enough to let go. That trust is not easy. Letting go feels like falling. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like stepping into emptiness. And that is exactly why it requires Iman. You are saying, Ya Allah, I do not understand what comes next, but I trust you more than I trust this attachment. When something repeatedly hurts you, this is not a test of how much pain you can tolerate. It is a message. When something distracts you from your purpose, consumes your thoughts, and drains your emotional energy, it is not love anymore. It is harm wearing the mask of attachment. And when something pulls you away from your dignity, when it makes you beg for attention, chase validation, or question your worth, then it has crossed a dangerous line. Love does not humiliate. Care does not degrade. An attachment that destroys self-respect is not something Allah asks you to protect. Allah does not love harm for His servants. He does not want you broken, depleted, or emotionally enslaved. He wants you grounded. He wants you dignified. He wants you whole. Sometimes letting go feels like loss, but in reality, it is preservation. You are not losing love. You are losing what was costing you your peace. You are not abandoning loyalty. You are choosing self-respect, and self-respect is not arrogance, it is amana. It is a trust Allah placed within you. Remember this, not everything that enters your heart was meant to stay. Some things enter to teach you, some enter to wake you up, and some enter only to show you what you should never accept again. When Allah removes something from your heart, it is not always punishment. Sometimes it is protection, sometimes it is mercy disguised as pain. And sometimes it is Allah making space for something better, something healthier, something cleaner, something that does not demand you sacrifice yourself to keep it. So be brave enough to question your attachments. Be honest enough to admit when something is harming you. And be faithful enough to believe that Allah's replacement is always better than what you are clinging to. You were never created to live chained to emotional pain. You were created to live with dignity, balance and trust in Allah. And letting go when done for the sake of Allah is not weakness. It is strength guided by faith. One of the most dangerous misunderstandings among believers is this idea that patience means staying wherever you are hurting, that if you leave, you are weak, that if you walk away, you failed the test, that if you set boundaries, you lack sabr. This misunderstanding has trapped many good people in emotional pain for years. Patience in Islam was never meant to turn you into a doormat. Sabr does not mean tolerating disrespect. Sabr does not mean accepting humiliation. And sabr does not mean remaining silent while your dignity is slowly stripped away. Patience is not the ability to endure anything endlessly. Patience is the ability to respond correctly. Islam teaches us restraint, not self-erasure. There is a big difference between a test and a warning. A test strengthens you. A warning drains you. When Allah tests you, He gives you strength to endure and growth through endurance. But when something repeatedly breaks you, weakens you, and pulls you away from your values, that is not a test to stay. It is a sign to step back. Some people stay in harmful situations and call it patience, but what they are really practicing is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of confrontation, fear of change, fear of losing someone they have already lost emotionally. Sabr is not fear. Sabr is courage under control. The Prophet, peace be upon him, never taught people to remain where they were constantly disrespected. He never praised humiliation. He never glorified emotional suffering. He taught dignity. He taught boundaries. He taught strength with mercy. Look at his life. When people rejected truth repeatedly, he did not chase them. When harm increased, sometimes he withdrew. When a door closed, he trusted Allah to open another. That was patience. Patience does not mean staying in a place where your heart is insulted daily. Patience does not mean allowing someone to repeatedly cross your boundaries and then excusing it with religion. Allah did not send Islam to make you smaller. If someone consistently ignores your feelings, dismisses your worth, or treats your presence as optional while benefiting from your loyalty, patience is not staying silent forever. Patience may be speaking once with clarity, and if nothing changes, patience may be walking away without hatred. That is not anger, that is wisdom. Some people think leaving means you lost. No. Sometimes leaving means you finally stopped losing yourself. Sometimes staying is not strength, it is attachment disguised as virtue. Ask yourself honestly, is this situation helping me become a better believer? Is it bringing peace to my heart? Is it increasing my closeness to Allah? If the answer is no, then do not use sabr as an excuse to remain stuck. Allah does not need you to be destroyed to prove your faith. He does not need you to bleed emotionally to earn His pleasure. Patience is not about how much pain you can tolerate. It is about how much trust you have in Allah's wisdom. Trusting Allah sometimes means believing that walking away is safer for your soul than staying. There are people who misuse the concept of patience to control others. They say, be patient while they continue to hurt you. They say, make dua while refusing to change their behavior. They say, this is your test while benefiting from your silence. That is not Islam. That is manipulation. Islam does not teach one person to be patient so another can be unjust comfortably. Allah is just and He does not ask you to cooperate with injustice against yourself. True patience has boundaries. It knows when to endure and when to disengage. It knows when to wait and when to move. And it never requires you to abandon your self-respect. If you are constantly anxious, constantly questioning your worth, constantly drained, constantly begging for basic decency, then something is wrong. And patience does not mean pretending it is normal. Sometimes patience is staying calm while you leave. Sometimes patience is resisting the urge to argue, explain, or seek closure from someone who refuses to listen. Sometimes patience is trusting Allah with unanswered questions. Walking away does not mean you hate them. It means you love Allah more than the attachment. It means you refuse to let someone's behavior define your emotional state. It means you choose peace over chaos. And Allah honors that. Remember this clearly. Patience is not passivity. Patience is not silence in the face of repeated harm. Patience is not staying where your dignity is slowly dying. Patience is strength guided by wisdom. Patience is faith with boundaries. Patience is knowing your worth and trusting Allah to protect it. If you are walking away today, do it with calm. Do it without bitterness. Do it without arrogance. Leave the outcome to Allah. He sees what you endured. He knows what you released. And He knows what He is preparing for you next. May Allah grant you patience that heals, not patience that harms. May He grant you wisdom to know when to stay and courage to know when to leave. And may He replace what you walked away from with something that brings peace to your heart. Ameen. When people hear the word detachment, they imagine bitterness, they imagine coldness, they imagine a heart that has hardened because it was hurt. But that is not detachment. That is unresolved pain. True detachment does not make you angry, it makes you clear. Bitterness is loud. It keeps replaying the past. It keeps arguing with people who are no longer present. It keeps demanding explanations. Clarity is quiet. It accepts what happened without needing revenge or validation. Many of you are not suffering because of what happened. You are suffering because your mind is still arguing with it. You keep revisiting conversations. You keep replaying moments. You keep thinking of what you should have said, what they should have understood, and how things could have been different. Detachment is the moment you stop negotiating with the past. You stop trying to rewrite what already occurred. You stop chasing closure from people who are not capable of giving it. You stop explaining yourself to those who already made their choice. And that is when peace begins. Clarity means you finally see people for who they are, not for who you hoped they would become. It means you stop filling in their silence with excuses. You stop justifying patterns that keep hurting you. You stop saying they didn't mean it when the behavior repeats itself again and again. When someone shows you who they are consistently, clarity means you believe them. Detachment does not require hatred. In fact, hatred keeps you emotionally tied. Anger keeps you invested. Resentment keeps them living in your heart rent-free. Detachment is different. Detachment is emotional neutrality. It is the ability to remember without reopening wounds. It is the ability to think of someone without your heart tightening. It is the ability to wish them well without wishing them close. That takes maturity. Some people think closure comes from a conversation. But often closure comes from acceptance, from saying, this is who they are, this is what happened, and I no longer need to fight reality. Islam teaches us to accept qadr without surrendering our dignity. You can accept what Allah allowed without approving what harmed you. Clarity means you no longer personalize everything. You stop thinking every action was about you. You realize people act from their own wounds, fears, and limitations. That understanding removes resentment. But clarity also means you do not keep giving access to those who misuse it. You can understand someone without keeping them close. You can forgive someone without trusting them again. Forgiveness cleans your heart. Trust is earned. Detachment allows both to exist without contradiction. Some of you are afraid that if you detach, you will become cold. No, coldness comes from suppression. Detachment comes from healing. Coldness is shutting down because you are afraid to feel. Detachment is staying open without being vulnerable to harm. It is knowing where to place your emotional energy and where not to. When you detach with clarity, you stop reacting. You stop being pulled into emotional chaos. You stop being controlled by someone else's behavior. You are no longer easily triggered. You no longer need to win arguments. You no longer need to prove your side of the story. And this is powerful because when you stop reacting, you take your power back. You realize that your peace is not dependent on apologies you may never receive. Your stability is not dependent on people changing. Your healing is not dependent on understanding everything. Sometimes the clarity Allah gives you is simply this. This is not for you. And once you accept that, you stop forcing what was never meant to stay. Detachment is not running away. It is standing still while the unnecessary falls away. It is removing emotional noise so you can hear your own soul again. And when clarity replaces bitterness, you breathe differently. You think differently. You move differently. You are no longer angry. You are no longer confused. You are no longer stuck. You are simply at peace with reality. And that peace is a gift from Allah, given to those who are brave enough to let go without hatred and wise enough to walk forward without regret. May Allah grant you clarity that calms your heart, not bitterness that hardens it. May He free you from emotional attachments that cloud your judgment. And may He grant you the peace that comes from seeing things as they truly are. Ameen. One of the quietest pains a human being can carry is the belief that their worth is proven by who stays in their life. When someone leaves, ignores you, or replaces you, the heart immediately asks, what was wrong with me? And if you are not careful, that question becomes a wound that never heals. Let me be very clear with you today. Your worth was never measured by human attachment. People leave for many reasons. Some leave because they are not ready for responsibility. Some leave because they are wounded and do not know how to love correctly. Some leave because they benefited from you but never valued you. And some leave because Allah is protecting you from something you cannot yet see. Their departure is not always a reflection of your value. Often it is a reflection of their capacity. But Shaitan is clever. He uses loss to attack identity. He whispers that if you were more loving, more patient, more forgiving, more valuable, they would have stayed. And slowly you begin to shrink yourself. You lower your standards. You tolerate behavior you once would have walked away from. You chase what walked away from you. This is how self-respect erodes. Islam never tied your worth to people choosing you. Allah tied your worth to taqwa, to sincerity, to intention. The moment Allah created you, your value was established. No one can add to it by staying, and no one can take from it by leaving. When someone walks away and you collapse emotionally, it is not because you lost them, it is because you unknowingly built your sense of worth around their presence. And that is dangerous. Detachment is the process of reclaiming your identity. It is the moment you say, I will not measure myself by someone else's ability to stay. It is when you stop chasing people to prove you are worthy of love. You do not need to convince the right people to stay. The right people do not need convincing. Some of you are mourning not the person, but the validation they provided. You miss feeling chosen. You miss feeling important. You miss feeling seen. And that is understandable. But do not confuse validation with value. Validation is temporary. It depends on mood, convenience, and circumstance. Value is permanent. It comes from Allah. When detachment begins, it feels like rejection. But in reality, it is redirection. Allah is removing what made you doubt yourself so you can rebuild your sense of worth on something unshakable. And here is a truth many people resist. Sometimes Allah allows people to leave so you can finally see yourself clearly. If someone's absence makes you feel worthless, then their presence had too much power over your identity. Allah loves you too much to let anyone occupy that space. You are not abandoned. You are being repositioned. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding. It means you stop proving. It means you stop begging to be treated well. When you detach, you are not saying, I am unlovable. You are saying, I will not shrink myself to be tolerated. That is self-respect. And self-respect is not pride. It is alignment with truth. It is understanding that Allah created you with honor and you are not allowed to trade that honor for attention. Some people will never see your value no matter how much you give. Not because you lack value, but because they lack vision. And it is not your job to teach them how to see. Your job is to walk away with dignity, trusting that Allah sees what they missed. Remember this. Those who truly value you will not make you question your worth. Those who constantly make you feel small are not meant to hold space in your heart. Detachment restores balance. It shifts your focus from being chosen to choosing yourself in obedience to Allah. And when you stop measuring your worth by who stays, you stop fearing who leaves. May Allah heal the part of your heart that equates abandonment with failure. May He anchor your worth in faith, not in people. And may He grant you the strength to detach with dignity, not despair. Ameen. One of the hardest acts of faith is not prayer. It is not fasting. It is not charity. It is letting go. Letting go of something you planned your future around. letting go of something you imagined would last, letting go of something that once felt like security. Because when you let go, you step into uncertainty. And the human heart fears uncertainty more than pain. Pain is familiar, pain can be predicted, but uncertainty requires trust. This is why many people hold on to what hurts them, not because it is good, but because it is known. Yet Allah never designed your life to be built on attachment to what He did not decree for you. When your hands are full of what Allah did not choose, you cannot receive what He did. And many people block their own relief because they refuse to release what already ended in Allah's knowledge. They say, Ya Allah, give me peace, while gripping the very thing that disturbs it. They say, Ya Allah, open a door, while standing in a doorway that has already closed. Detachment is not loss, it is alignment. It is aligning your heart with divine wisdom instead of human desire. It is saying, Ya Allah, I may not understand why this is leaving, but I trust that you do. This is tawakkul in action. Trusting Allah does not mean everything feels calm. It means you move forward even when it doesn't. It means you release without seeing the replacement yet. It means you believe that what Allah removes is making space for something better, even if better looks different than what you imagined. Many people want Allah's plan, but only if it matches their own. That is not trust, that is negotiation. True tawakkul begins where control ends. Sometimes Allah removes people because they were blocking your growth. Sometimes He removes situations because they were shrinking you. Sometimes He removes attachments because they were becoming idols in your heart. Things you relied on emotionally more than you relied on Him. Allah does not compete for space in the heart. If something occupies a place it should not, Allah gently or sometimes painfully removes it. And when that happens, it hurts. Not because Allah is cruel, but because attachment made it hurt. Letting go feels like failure at first. It feels like you lost something important, but with time you realize you did not lose. You were protected. What you called loss was Allah saving you from a future that would have broken you. What you called heartbreak was Allah loosening your grip on something that was never meant to be permanent. Detachment teaches you a powerful truth. What is written for you will never require you to destroy yourself to keep it. If something demands that you sacrifice your peace, your dignity, your iman, or your emotional stability just to remain, it was never from Allah, because Allah does not gift you something that leads you away from Him. Replacement from Allah is real, but it rarely arrives immediately. Allah does not always replace what you lose in the same form. He replaces it with something that serves your akhirah, not just your comfort. Sometimes the replacement is clarity, sometimes it is peace, sometimes it is self-respect, and sometimes it is a better version of you, stronger, wiser, and no longer emotionally dependent. You must allow the space for that replacement to enter. If you cling to the past, you delay the future. If you mourn what left too long, you miss what is arriving. Trusting Allah means believing that His removal is as intentional as His giving. Let go with humility. Let go without resentment. Let go knowing that Allah saw everything you held onto in good faith, and He will reward you for releasing it when it became harmful. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are being redirected. And one day you will look back and thank Allah not for what stayed, but for what left. May Allah grant you the strength to release what no longer serves your faith. May He fill the space with peace, purpose, and something better than what you imagined. And may He increase your trust in His plan even when the path is unclear. Ameen, my brother. My sister, one of the most dangerous lies people believe is that love requires chasing. That if you truly care, you must pursue endlessly. That if you stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop trying, then you did not love deeply enough. That is not love. That is fear wearing the language of love. Islam never taught us to love in a way that destroys us. It never taught us to abandon dignity for connection. And it never taught us to beg for space in someone's life. You can love without chasing. You can care without humiliating yourself. You can feel deeply without losing balance. Love in Islam is meant to be grounded, not obsessive. It is meant to be sincere, not desperate. When love turns into anxiety, when it turns into constant overthinking, when it turns into fear of abandonment, then something has gone out of balance. And Islam is a religion of balance. Some people confuse intensity with sincerity. They think the more they chase, the more they prove their love. But love does not need proof through suffering. Love is recognized through respect, consistency, and mutual care. When you chase someone who is pulling away, you are not strengthening love, you are weakening yourself. And over time, this chasing teaches your heart a dangerous lesson that your worth is dependent on how hard you try. That if someone does not choose you, it is because you did not do enough. This belief slowly breaks the soul. The Prophet, peace be upon him, never taught us to chase people who turned away from truth. He delivered the message with clarity and compassion. And when people rejected it, he trusted Allah and moved forward with dignity. This is an important lesson. You present yourself with honesty. You love with sincerity. And if someone does not respond with care, you do not collapse, you release. Chasing someone who is emotionally unavailable does not bring closeness. It creates imbalance. One heart becomes dominant, the other becomes indifferent. One gives, the other receives. And this imbalance breeds resentment, exhaustion, and quiet humiliation. Detachment restores balance. When you stop chasing, you are not punishing them. You are protecting yourself. You are telling your heart, I will not run after what does not value me. And this is not arrogance. This is self-respect rooted in faith. Some of you worry that if you stop chasing, you will lose them forever. But ask yourself honestly, were they truly present even when you were chasing, or were you holding the connection together alone? If something only survives through your effort, it was never stable to begin with. Islam teaches us that love should bring sakina, tranquility. If your heart is constantly restless, constantly afraid, constantly seeking reassurance, then love has turned into attachment. Attachment says, I cannot be okay without you. Love says, I care for you, but I am whole with or without you. Detachment allows love to exist without dependency. You can still make dua for someone without chasing them. You can still wish them well without inserting yourself into their life. You can still care from a distance without reopening wounds. This is emotional maturity. Some people think walking away means you stopped loving. No, sometimes walking away is the purest form of love. Love that refuses to turn bitter, resentful, or toxic. Because if you stay and continue chasing, love slowly transforms into anger, it turns into blame, it turns into self-hatred, and eventually it turns into regret. Detachment preserves the goodness that once existed. Allah did not create you to beg for affection. He did not create you to shrink yourself to be tolerated. He did not create you to exhaust your heart chasing someone who does not meet you with the same sincerity. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to stop initiating. You are allowed to choose silence over self-betrayal. This does not make you cold. It makes you wise. When you stop chasing, you give the situation clarity. Either the other person steps forward with effort, or the truth reveals itself without confusion. And truth, even when painful, is a mercy. Love without chasing teaches you an important lesson. What is meant for you will not require desperation to keep it. What Allah has written for you will move toward you with ease, not with constant anxiety. And what requires you to abandon your self-respect to maintain was never written to last. Let go of the belief that love must hurt to be real. Let go of the idea that sacrifice means self-erasure. Love in Islam is strong, calm, and dignified. May Allah teach you to love without attachment, to care without chasing, and to detach without hardening your heart. May He replace anxiety with tranquility and fear with trust. And may He grant you relationships that bring peace, not confusion. Ameen. Many people think self-respect is a modern idea. They think it comes from psychology, confidence, coaching, or self-help books. But self-respect existed long before any of that. It is deeply rooted in faith. A believer is not someone who humiliates themselves for acceptance. A believer is not someone who stays where their soul is crushed daily. And a believer is not someone who trades dignity for attention. Islam honors the human being. Allah created you with karamahana. That honor is not something people give you. It is something Allah placed within you, and you are not allowed to hand it away to anyone who does not value it. Self-respect is not arrogance. Arrogance is thinking you are better than others. Self-respect is refusing to treat yourself as less than you are. When you detach for the sake of Allah, you are not becoming distant from people. You are becoming closer to truth. You are recognizing that your heart is an amana. It is a trust. And you will be questioned about how you protected it. Some people stay in harmful attachments and say, this is my test. But Allah does not test you by asking you to destroy yourself. Tests come to elevate you, not erase you. A believer does not cooperate with harm against themselves. Just as you would not allow someone to physically abuse you, you are not required to allow emotional abuse either. Islam does not differentiate between pain just because it cannot be seen. Self-respect means knowing when to step back without hatred. It means knowing when to disengage without arrogance. It means knowing when to be silent. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough not to react. Detachment done for the sake of Allah softens the heart. It does not harden it. You stop carrying resentment. You stop plotting revenge. You stop hoping people feel guilty. You leave the matter with Allah, and that is where peace enters. When you detach correctly, you do not wish harm upon those who hurt you. You simply wish them away from your inner world. You remove their power over your emotions. You remove their control over your peace. This is strength. Some people think Iman means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly patient with no limits. But Iman also means wisdom. It means knowing when forgiveness cleans the heart and when distance protects it. You can forgive someone and still not give them access. You can make dua for someone and still walk away. You can love the sake of Allah and still maintain boundaries. These things do not contradict faith, they complete it. The strongest believers are not the loudest. They are not the most reactive. They are the ones who know when to move forward without dragging the past with them. Self-respect allows you to worship Allah with a free heart. A heart that is not weighed down by resentment, obsession, or emotional exhaustion. When you are constantly broken by people, your worship becomes heavy, your dua becomes distracted, your heart becomes tired. Allah wants you strong enough to stand before Him with focus, not drained by unnecessary attachments. Detachment is not coldness, it is emotional hygiene. It is clearing the heart of what contaminates it so faith can breathe again. And here is a truth many people need to hear.